Who in the seven hells tries to propose while pointing a blade at a girl's neck? Elara had asked herself this question a split second before she slammed the pommel of her own small dagger into Alpha Oren's jaw, sending him sprawling in front of the entire High Council. Now the crowd around them erupted in gasps and curses, and somewhere on her left, one of the elders spluttered like he might faint. Elara's heart thudded so hard she wondered if the entire marble hall could hear it, but she refused to show a flicker of fear. She stood in the center of the great council chamber, breathing raggedly, hair tumbling over her shoulder where some fool's hand had tried to yank her backward. The ring of onlookers parted in shock. Alphas, betas, elders, all of them in dark ceremonial robes or shining armor, each more imposing than the next. But Elara was used to it by now, the stares, the whispers. Cursed Omega. Born under a forbidden star. She'd heard it all. And she'd still somehow lived to see this moment, rejecting Alpha number 7 in a single year. She felt their eyes scorching her skin, and for a terrifying moment, she thought, maybe this time they'll kill me. Her adrenaline spiked, but she didn't lower her chin. She was not going to give them the satisfaction. Alpha Oren lay on the polished floor, blinking in dazed fury. His dagger skittered across the stones, out of reach. He spat a broken laugh, wiping blood from the corner of his mouth. "You wretched Omega," he rasped, forcing himself upright. "How do you strike your future mate?" Elara snorted, swirling her own dagger in one hand. It was a short blade, more for show than real combat, but she knew how to hold it. She'd had to learn, given the unending attempts to corner her into a mate bond. "I will never be your mate," she growled, each word laced with cold conviction. "Touch me again, and the next blow won't just knock you down." A roar of indignation burst from the surrounding alphas, a few stepping forward like they might restrain her, but one of the elders, a stooped man with a staff, quickly raised a shaky hand to keep the peace. The tension in the hall crackled. Onlookers craned their necks to see if she'd truly dare threaten an alpha. But the hush that followed told her nobody doubted it. Her chest still rose and fell in ragged gulps of air as she scanned the watchful faces around her. Yes, every single one of these men was a potential threat or had been in the past. Some eyed her with open resentment. Maybe they were the alphas she'd rejected in the months before. Others wore expressions of curious excitement, as if convinced that this rebellious Omega would one day break beneath the right alpha's will. The rest merely stared with silent disapproval. Beyond them, at the hall's edge, a massive stained glass window cast broken sunlight in shards of red and gold across the floor. It made the entire chamber look bathed in blood. Fitting, since the blood moon was coming. Everyone whispered about it, how each unmated alpha must find his destined mate before the crimson moon rose high or lose his title forever. The deadline had never felt more real. And she, Elara, was the so-called perfect candidate for these desperate alphas, except she'd refused them, one by one. This was the final straw, or so they muttered. She'd now rejected 7. And number 7, Alpha Oren, was still picking himself off the floor, rubbing a bruised jaw. The stooped elder rapped his staff for order. "Elara," he said, voice trembling with anger. "This is the 7th Alpha you have refused. Our laws are clear. By the time the blood moon arrives, you must be mated or—" She lifted her chin. "Or I die." "Yes, I know." Her tone emerged sharper than intended. She forced a bitter smile, aware that dread coiled in her belly. It was no idle threat. For an Omega as powerful, no, as dangerous, as she was rumored to be, the council refused to let her roam free if she remained unmated. They said it would disrupt pack hierarchy, break ancient rules. So she either found a mate among these beasts or faced the council's final punishment. Her skin crawled at the thought. Somewhere behind her, a beta coughed nervously. A wave of tension rippled through the watchers. All eyes on her. She saw the sneers, the pity, the lust, and the curiosity. She suppressed a shudder. If she had to choose between letting some arrogant alpha chain her for life or accepting death, well, she'd prefer to face death on her feet. She turned to Oren, who glared at her with the fury of a man whose pride was shattered. "You dare lift a hand against me, an alpha of the Irefong pack?" he snarled, voice still shaky from the blow. "You little..." She cut him off with a glare. "You threaten me," she spat, loud enough for the entire hall to hear. "You don't get to wave a blade in my face, call it a proposal, and expect me to kneel. I'd rather die free than belong to a brute." Her words echoed, drawing gasps from those who still cling to the old ways. Elara's defiance crackled in the air. She wanted them to see she was done being cornered, done playing their forced games. The stooped elder rapped the staff again, more urgently. "Enough. The council will not tolerate violence in this sacred hall," he intoned. "Alpha Oren, stand down." He shot a stern look at Elara, though the old man's eyes betrayed a flicker of respect. "Omega, you must be mated. This is your last chance. The blood moon is less than a fortnight away." She inhaled, steadying her heartbeat. "Then I will meet that blood moon alone," she said, each syllable unwavering. "I won't bind myself to anyone unworthy, not even if the goddess herself demanded it." She felt a wild surge of triumph at her own words, though fear gnawed at the edge of her mind. Because if no one claimed her, the council had the power to banish or kill her. She saw that knowledge mirrored in the watchers' faces. The next 2 weeks would be an excruciating dance of attempts to subdue her. But she'd face it. She'd reject every last one. She was done bowing. Suddenly, the hush in the hall deepened. A rustle in the crowd, some shifting of posture. Elara blinked, noticing a figure emerge from the shadowed corridor at the back of the chamber, someone tall, broad-shouldered, and silent, stepping through the parted crowd like a knife through water. She couldn't see his face at first, only the cut of a dark coat and the faint glint of an unsheathed sword strapped to his back. The watchers stiffened, some inclining their heads in cautious respect. A new alpha, perhaps. She sensed the ripple of tension, heard the faintest murmurs. "He's here, but why?" Her pulse quickened, a sudden chill raising the hairs on her arms. She had no illusions this might be another suitor, but something about him felt different. Less theatrical, more lethal. He halted just outside the circle of onlookers, crossing his arms. For a moment, no one moved. Then the stooped elder cleared his throat. "Alpha Zev," he said quietly, acknowledging the newcomer. Zev. She'd never heard that name. He said nothing, simply arched a brow and leveled a gaze at Elara that sent a jolt through her chest. It was direct, unsmiling, as though he was measuring her. Like she was a puzzle he meant to solve. Her palms grew damp around the hilt of her dagger. She refused to look away, though his eyes, dark as pitch, made her spine tingle. Alpha Oren, still stinging with humiliation, glared at the new arrival. "You're late," he spat. Zev shrugged, the motion slow and controlled. His voice, when it came, was a rough baritone that carried easily in the hush. "I heard there was a spectacle in the hall," he said. "Wouldn't want to miss our little Omega's latest rejection." His lips curved in something that might have been amusement or scorn. She couldn't tell. Her chest tightened. "And who are you to speak so casually?" Oren snapped. But the stooped elder stepped in, voice quavering. "Alpha Zev hails from the far north, beyond the Whitefall Range," he explained. "He arrived this dawn, presumably he trailed off, shooting a glance at Elara, to see if a mate can be found here before the blood moon." Elara's pulse drummed. So he was here for the same reason as the rest. Another alpha, another chance for them to try and lock her into a bond she despised. She huffed, returning Zev's unwavering stare with a glare of her own. "You're wasting your time," she warned, flicking her dagger up in a casual stance. "I've said no to 7. I'll say no to 8 or 80, if that's what it takes." Zev didn't flinch. He studied her face, her stance, the tension in her shoulders. Then, in a single fluid motion, he strode forward, breaching the circle of watchers until he was just a breath away from her. She forced herself not to back up, though every instinct screamed that he was dangerous. He was tall enough that she had to tilt her head to meet his gaze. In that fleeting moment, she registered details: the faint scar along his jaw, the curl of dark hair at his collar, the smell of cold steel and pine. The swirling sense that, unlike the other alphas who'd tried sweet words or brute force, this one might just devour her whole if he wanted to. Her heartbeat pounded a wild rhythm. The entire hall watched with bated breath. He spoke softly, only for her ears. "Are you truly ready to die rather than be claimed by a man who doesn't deserve you?" The question coiled between them like a threat and a promise. A jolt of surprise nearly made her drop her dagger. It was exactly what she'd told herself all these months: better to die free than be caged. For him to echo it made her skin prickle. She straightened, forcing her mouth not to tremble. "I am," she replied, quiet but sure. "No alpha, no matter how strong, will tame me." A flicker of something amusement, perhaps, sparked in his dark eyes. He inclined his head an inch, acknowledging her words. Then he stepped back, arms crossed again. "Good," he murmured. "It's more interesting that way." His tone sent a slow shiver through her veins. The watchers collectively held their breath. The stooped elder banged his staff, clearing his throat. "Alpha Zev, if you have come to challenge for the Omega." Zev cut him off with a raised hand, still not bothering to face the elder. His gaze remained locked on Elara, pinning her with that same intense scrutiny. "I have no interest in challenges," he said. "Only results." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Oren cursed under his breath, stepping aside as if the new alpha's aura was too potent to confront directly. The tension soared. Elara realized she was still gripping her dagger, arms taut. Her mark, the tiny brand on her wrist that signaled she was a rare Omega, throbbed with discomfort. She never felt it quite so strongly unless something big was happening, something that might alter her fate. Zev's lips curved into a half-smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'll watch," he said softly, "until you decide whether you're truly determined to die, or if you just haven't met the right alpha." Heat flushed Elara's cheeks, anger flaring. How dare he speak to her like she was some puzzle to solve? But the worst part was the faint thrill under her skin, as if her wolf side recognized a predator worth fearing. She swallowed. "You'll watch me reject you, too," she snapped, but her voice wavered. A corner of his mouth twitched. "We'll see." Thunder seemed to rumble in the distance, though the sky outside was clear. The watchers began to disperse, uneasy with the tension. The stooped elder turned to a group of robed attendants, instructing them to prepare for the next council session. He cast a warning glance at Elara, as if reminding her of the blood moon's deadline. She ignored him, too busy glaring at Zev. Oren stumbled away, humiliated, muttering curses. A few other alphas glowered, their illusions of a docile omega shattered. Some left in fury. Elara was left standing in the center, chest heaving, still in her defensive stance. She realized the hall had nearly emptied, save for a handful of curious onlookers. And one unblinking man, arms folded, face unreadable, standing at the edge of the dais. Silent. Observing her. She fought the urge to shiver. Something told her he was everything the others were not. She took a small, careful breath. Then she turned on her heel, heading for the far door. She refused to linger. If he followed, fine. She'd show him how quickly she could vanish. She sensed his gaze burning into her back, all the way out of the chamber, sending prickles racing up her spine. But she wouldn't grant him another glance. As she slipped into the corridors beyond, heart pounding, she couldn't quite banish the image of him from her mind. Tall, dark, exuding danger. Was he truly just another alpha hoping to claim her before the blood moon? Or was there something else? She hated the swirl of curiosity. She told herself it didn't matter. She'd reject him like the rest, no matter how unsettlingly calm his approach was. Yet as she stepped into the open courtyard, feeling the crisp air cut across her cheeks, she realized her hands were shaking. She curled them into fists, glaring at her own trembling limbs. "Get a grip," she muttered under her breath. She had bigger problems. The entire council wanted her mated or dead within 2 weeks. She'd just knocked Alpha Oren on his arrogant backside, and now a new contender arrived. She needed to keep her wits or risk losing everything. The courtyard, ringed by high arches and carved pillars, was a place usually filled with pack alliances mingling, but now it lay quiet, tension still rippling from the drama inside. She heard footsteps behind her and stiffened, whirling only to see an elder's attendant, a young man with a worried expression. He beckoned for her to return to the hall. She rolled her eyes. The council must want a formal statement about the scene with Oren, probably to admonish her for aggression. She let out a humorless laugh, ignoring him. Instead, she marched across the courtyard's tiled floor, heading to the labyrinth of corridors that led to her assigned chamber. They'd given her a small, cramped room near the novices' quarters, presumably so they could keep an eye on her. She wanted to gather her few possessions, maybe hide in the forest for a few hours. The tension inside the council walls was suffocating. Yet as she passed one of the stone pillars, a voice soft, cunning, whispered her name. She pivoted, heart-lurching. But it was only a beta from one of the lesser packs, a man who'd once tried to curry favor by offering her gifts. She recognized his face. He offered a slimy grin, leaning in. "Don't do anything rash, Omega," he murmured. "The council's patience is running thin. Tread carefully." She glared at him. "I can fight my own battles." He shrugged, smirk deepening. "We'll see how tough you are when that new alpha takes an interest." He's not one to leave empty-handed. The beta winked, slipping away into the shadowy corridor before she could retort. Her stomach nodded. Great. The gossip had spread even faster than she thought. Everyone recognized the danger in a man who broke all the old rules, apparently. And it seemed they believed she was next on his list. She inhaled slowly, forcing her heartbeat to steady. So what if he was dangerous? She'd faced 7 alphas already. She could handle an 8th. She had no illusions, though Zev felt different. Something in her gut told her he might not rely on cheap intimidation. He might simply take. She shivered. Shaking off the beta's warning, she continued down the corridor, determined not to let fear override her defiance. Eventually, she reached her room, a tiny cell-like space with a single window overlooking the fortress courtyard. She closed the door behind her, leaning her forehead against the rough wood. Exhaling slowly, she let the tension slough off. Only for a moment. That fleeting hush reminded her of the unstoppable clock ticking. The blood moon was so close. She had no plan, no safe harbor. She had only her pride and a dagger. She pushed away from the door, ignoring the dryness in her throat. Her reflection in the small warped mirror across the room caught her eye, a pale woman with fierce green eyes and a stubborn tilt to her jaw. Her hair was braided to keep out of the way, but some strands had escaped during the scuffle with Oren. She brushed them back, remembering how easily she'd knocked him flat. A bubble of grim amusement stirred in her chest. She was a cursed Omega, sure, but that didn't mean she'd roll over for any alpha who snapped his fingers. Footsteps sounded outside. She stilled. A single, measured cadence. Not the frantic scurry of a messenger, nor the hurried pace of a council guard. The door rattled lightly. She clenched her fists, suspecting who might stand on the other side. She yanked it open, half expecting to see Zev's face. But no, just emptiness. She frowned, stepping into the corridor. Was her mind playing tricks? The space lay deserted. Torches flickered, casting shadows across the stone. She exhaled, shaking her head. Paranoia. She'd best rest, gather her strength. Tomorrow, the council would doubtless summon her again, try to pressure a solution. She was ready to hurl more rejections, if that's what it took. Yet as she turned back into her room, she felt a prickle at the back of her neck. She paused. The air smelled faintly of pine, of cold wind. A sense that someone had been there just seconds before. She spun around again, scanning every corner. Nothing. It set her heart pounding. Was it him? She stepped back inside, closed the door, and slid the latch. For a moment, she just leaned against the wood, breathing carefully. The silence pressed in. She forced herself to calm down. Even if Zev had come prowling, she doubted he'd break down her door. Not yet, anyway. She slid a chair under the latch for good measure, ignoring how silly it felt. Then she sank onto her narrow bed, hugging her knees. She reminded herself that no matter what happened, she refused to let them cage her. She'd find a way out if it came to that. And if an alpha like Zev thought she'd be easy prey, well, she'd show him the same defiance she'd shown them all. She curled tighter, the moonlight slanting in from the window. Her mark on her wrist tingled softly, reminding her of the weight of fate. She was born under a forbidden star, yes, but that didn't mean she had to accept a destiny she didn't choose. She sat there until the torches in the corridor were dimmed, the fortress quieting for the night. Thunder rumbled in the distance again, though the sky was clear. She wondered if it was just her imagination, conjuring storms to match the dread swirling in her chest. Eventually, she let exhaustion drag her down onto the mattress. She drifted into a restless sleep, dreams filled with looming red moons and the echo of a deep voice asking if she was truly prepared to die free. When dawn arrived, she woke with a start, heart already pounding like she'd run miles. She recalled the day's inevitabilities, The council would demand new answers, the possibility that alphas from distant packs would appear, desperate to claim her. She forced herself upright, washed quickly in the small basin, and braided her hair again. She strapped on her dagger. Some might call it paranoid, but she called it survival. She was about to open the door when voices drifted from the corridor, raised in argument. She pressed an ear to the wood, listening. Told you, she's an omega under the forbidden star. Anyone who mates with her might be cursed. That was a female voice, possibly one of the attendants. A male scoffed. Superstition. She's obviously powerful, that's all. Alphas can sense it. She's a threat, even if she doesn't intend to be. A rustle of cloth. But word is, Alpha Zev has come to see her. If she refuses him, it'll be the 8th rejection. The council might. Elara couldn't bear to hear more. She shoved the door open, startling them both. They jolted, eyes wide. She shot them a glare that sent them scattering. Then she strode off, ignoring the uneasy swirl in her gut. If the council wanted her compliance, they'd have to pry it from her corpse. She found her way to the council hall again, though this time it was less crowded. A few robed figures busied themselves with scrolls. She scanned for a sign of the stooped elder, wanting to get the day's interrogation over with. Instead, she was met by a younger official who politely said the council had chosen to let her rest today, likely meaning they were deciding a new tactic to force her hand. She snorted. Fine by her. Her next stop was the fortress training yard. She might as well work off tension. The yard lay behind the main building, a wide space of packed dirt ringed by walls. Pack soldiers drilled there daily, but at this early hour, it was mostly empty. She found a worn target dummy in a corner and started practicing slashes with her dagger. The strikes felt clumsy. She was no seasoned fighter, but the repetitive motions steadied her nerves. Blade whistling through the air, she let her frustrations guide each thrust. She pictured Oren's smug face, the council's condemning eyes. Then a new face intruded on her mind. Zev, with that faint, dangerous smirk. She growled and stabbed the dummy so hard the dagger sank into the wood. She had to yank it free with effort, breathing ragged. A low chuckle made her spin, adrenaline spiking. Zev stood at the edge of the yard, arms folded, looking as though he'd been there a while. She clenched her jaw, pulling the blade from the target. You again, she muttered. How long have you been watching? He shrugged, stepping forward. Long enough to see your aim's improving, but your stance is off. He gestured with a slight wave of his hand, as though she might want his pointers. She bristled. I didn't ask for instruction. He tilted his head, eyes gleaming with mild amusement. No, but you need it. His voice carried that same quiet authority. She almost hated that she craved to prove him wrong. But her pride seethed. She turned back to the dummy, ignoring him. Another slash, a bit off-center. Another huff of annoyance from her parted lips. He let out a hum of disapproval, striding over. She whipped the dagger around in warning, but he merely arched a brow, stepping behind her. His hands, large, calloused, hovered near her arms, not quite touching. Loosen your elbow, he murmured. You're overextending. Think less brute force, more fluid motion. She wanted to snap at him, but the closeness made her heart stutter. She could smell pine and steel again, a deeper musk beneath it. She realized with a chill that he could overpower her easily if he chose. But he simply hovered, letting her adjust. She inhaled, forced her posture to shift. Another slash, this time more precise. It startled her how natural it felt. She risked a glance over her shoulder, meeting his gaze. He dipped his chin in approval, stepping back. A subtle flush crept up her neck. He'd helped, and she resented that she appreciated it. She lowered the dagger, turning to face him fully. "Why are you here?" she demanded, ignoring the subtle tingle in her limbs. "Are you so eager to be the 8th Alpha thrown aside?" He studied her, expression inscrutable. "Maybe I enjoy a challenge." Then, quieter, "Or maybe I'm curious about an Omega who can't be tamed. Is it that you won't let anyone close, or that you haven't found someone worthy?" Heat flared in her chest. She hated the flicker of uncertainty his words provoked. She wanted to snarl that none were worthy, but a swirl of doubt made her hesitate. Instead, she snapped her dagger back into its sheath. "You'll find out soon enough. I have no interest in you or your curiosity." She tried to brush past him. He caught her wrist gently, not enough to hurt, but enough to make her freeze. A shock of sensation shot through her. "You're lying," he murmured, voice low. "We both know it." Slowly, carefully, she twisted her wrist free, heart pounding. Her mind churned with confusion. Did he sense the same strange tension she did? She set her jaw, ignoring the wild flutter in her stomach. "I'm not lying about rejecting you," she said coldly. "That's inevitable. Save yourself the effort." He smirked, stepping away. "We'll see," he repeated, tone maddeningly calm. Then, before she could retort, he pivoted and left the yard, his black coat swaying behind him. She stood there, trembling with anger and something akin to anticipation. She cursed under her breath, hurling the dagger at the dummy again, burying it deep in the wood. That man was trouble, and she was a fool to feel anything but loathing. The day passed in a tense blur. She avoided the council, managing to slip out of the fortress briefly to gather her thoughts in the pine-scented forest behind the walls. She half expected to sense Zev's presence in every shadow. Instead, she found only the quiet rustle of branches, distant bird calls. She tried to quell the swirl of emotions. She told herself again that she'd never yield to an alpha, especially one like Zev, who exuded raw danger. Yet somewhere in her gut, she couldn't deny a flicker of intrigue. She despised it. Night fell, bringing renewed anxiety about the ticking clock of the blood moon. She returned to her small room, mind swirling with possible escape routes if the council demanded her submission. She dozed fitfully, dreaming of red moons and haunting eyes that tracked her through endless corridors. Waking in the early hours, heart drumming, she realized her time was running short. At dawn, a council messenger banged on her door, summoning her to a formal hearing. She dragged herself there, bracing for a new wave of demands. The stooped elder led the session, reading from a scroll about how her disobedience threatened the stability of the northern packs. She forced herself not to roll her eyes. Yes, they'd said it all before. But then he added a twist. "We have convened with alphas willing to meet you for possible claim before the blood moon. You must attend a social gathering tonight." Her stomach turned. A social gathering, meaning she'd be put on display for them to attempt wooing or intimidation. She wanted to refuse outright, but the elder's unwavering glare reminded her of the penalty. So she agreed in silence, fists clenched. And so, that night, she found herself dressed in a reluctant swirl of black gown, hair pinned with a single silver comb. The council arranged the event in a grand hall lit by chandeliers, filled with swirling music. She entered, shoulders tense, spotting 6 or 7 alphas milling about. None looked appealing. She recognized them. Some had tried already to court her, some were new. She braced for an onslaught of forced pleasantries. The room stank of ambition. Betas hovered around, offering wine, while the alphas circled her like vultures. She endured question after question. Will you consider my Pax alliance? I can provide you with the largest territory. My father was an elder. We have lineage. I promise you comfort, luxury. She gave curt answers, forcing a polite mask. Inside, she wanted to scream. Then a hush fell, unnervingly familiar. She turned, blood chilling, as Zev appeared at the edge of the hall, dressed in a dark, formal coat that clung to his lean frame. He scanned the crowd, ignoring the alpha's sidelong glares. When his gaze landed on Elara, a faint smirk curved his lips. Her heart thudded. For an instant, no words formed. Then, forcing composure, she faced him with cold defiance. He strode through the throng, and they parted, some in awe, some in fear. She didn't back away as he neared, though her pulse hammered. The hush deepened, the music faltering. He stopped inches from her, ignoring the anxious watchers. She smelled pine again, a subtle undercurrent of raw power. A part of her demanded she maintain distance. She lifted her chin. Come to watch me reject more alphas, she said, voice dripping sarcasm. Or perhaps you're next in line? He studied her with hooded eyes. I'm not in line for anything, he replied quietly, voice carrying in the silence. But yes, I am here to see if you'll reject me. Or if you're just looking for an excuse to run. Her cheeks flamed, both at his insinuation and at the ring of watchers who strained to hear. She tried to muster a witty comeback but found her tongue twisted. So many times she'd told them she'd die free. Now, in front of this man, the words felt hollow. The tension soared. The other alphas bristled, but none dared interrupt. She realized with a jolt that Zev's presence commanded more respect or fear than any of them had mustered. Finally, she forced a brittle smile. I run from no one. If I wanted to vanish, I would have done it by now. A flicker of admiration danced in his eyes, there and gone. Good, he said. Then, in a move that made her stomach flip, he reached out, offering his hand as if to dance. The watchers gasped. The hush became suffocating. She stared at his outstretched palm, her heartbeat roaring in her ears. Part of her yearned to snatch it away, refuse. Another part of her burned with curiosity. Would dancing with him let her see his true intentions? Her breath shook. Summoning every scrap of courage, she laid her hand in his. A wave of heat coursed up her arm. He guided her toward the center of the hall. At a nod from the stooped elder, the musicians hesitantly resumed a slow, haunting melody. The circle of onlookers parted, giving them space. He settled a hand at her waist, the other lacing with her fingers. She felt the press of his calloused palm, the tension coiled in his muscles. She placed her free hand lightly on his shoulder, blood racing. The scent of him was stronger now, enveloping her senses. They began a slow waltz, though the music's pace felt ominously languid. She hated how her stomach fluttered. She fought to keep her expression neutral. You're not going to spout nonsense about how you can offer me everything I desire, are you? She asked softly, sarcasm lacing her tone. He let out a low chuckle. I suspect you'd stab me if I did. A faint smile touched her lips despite herself. You're learning quickly. She avoided looking up, focusing on the swirling pattern of the floor. The closeness left her breath unsteady. He leaned in slightly, whispering near her ear. I have no illusions of coaxing you with trinkets or territory. You're not that kind of Omega. His breath was warm on her neck, sending a tiny shiver down her spine. I'm here because I think you're worth more than all of that. And I suspect you want something deeper, more dangerous. She tensed, heart hammered, because he wasn't wrong. But the intensity of his words rattled her. Did he truly see her that clearly? She risked a glance up, meeting his dark gaze. He didn't flinch or grin lecherously, just held her stare with quiet confidence. Her chest constricted. She realized the entire room watched, some with burning jealousy, some with scandalized shock. She felt trapped, yet oddly enthralled. Maybe I do want that, she whispered fiercely, but not from someone who sees me as a conquest. He shook his head. I'm not here to conquer, he said, voice almost gentle. I'm here to see if we can ignite something. But if you want me gone, say the word. I'll leave. I have no interest in forcing you. Her mind whirled. No alpha had ever given her that choice so freely. She swallowed, unsure how to respond. They swayed to the haunting melody. Her pulse hammered, confusion gripping her. Did she dare trust him? She should push him away. But her body betrayed her, leaning into his warmth. Then the song ended. A hush followed. Zev stepped back, still holding her hand. She stared at him, chest heaving, uncertain what to say. He waited, expression calm but intense. The watchers shifted, tension building. She realized a single word from her could banish him or allow him to remain. Her lips parted, unsure what she intended. Before she could speak, a crash echoed from the far side of the hall. An uproar of voices. The stooped elder rushed to intervene. Someone shouted that a messenger had arrived with urgent news about a rogue attack near the border. The entire gathering dissolved into chaos, alphas murmuring in alarm, betas scurrying to handle the crisis. Zev's eyes flicked in that direction, jaw tightening. She used the distraction to slip her hand free and step away. An uneasy ripple coursed through the watchers. Some nodded, as if they half agreed. The stooped elder closed his eyes. Very well. But if we cannot unify, the blood moon might deliver ruin to us all. She clenched her fists, nails biting into her palms. She hated feeling like the entire fate of the Pax was pinned on her. Ridiculous. She scanned the faces, searching for an ally. Instead, she saw the usual condemnation. Her chest tightened, a wave of despair threatening to overwhelm her. But she forced it back. She wouldn't break. Not here. Suddenly, a voice spoke from behind the group. Hounding her won't solve your rogue problem. The crowd parted, revealing Zev, once again slipping in unnoticed. Elara's pulse kicked. He prowled forward, ignoring the sour looks from other alphas. If you think forcing a mate bond under duress fixes your territory's cracks, you're blind. His gaze flicked to the elder. The stooped man bristled. Alpha Zev, your arrogance is ill-timed. We stand on the brink of war. Zev shrugged calmly. War or not, you can't chain an Omega and expect loyalty. That's how rogues are born in the first place. His dark eyes met Elara's. She felt a spark of gratitude at him calling out the council's hypocrisy. She swallowed, uncertain how to respond. One of the older alphas, a hulking brute with a scarred face, growled, "Stay out of our politics. You're an outsider." Zev offered a cold smile. Indeed, I am. But I came because I sensed something here, something that might be worth my time. His gaze flicked to Elara, heat coiling in her stomach again. The stooped elder exhaled, weary. We must unite, he repeated, a note of defeat in his voice. We'll convene again at dusk for final strategies. For now, do as you will. But remember, the blood moon draws near. If we can't solve our leadership issues, he trailed off, meeting Elara's eyes with a somber look. She gave a curt nod, stepping back. The group began dispersing, some alphas following the stooped elder to plan defenses. Others shot glances at Zev and Elara as though anticipating fireworks. She turned to leave, but found Zev right behind her. She froze, swallowing. "You love meddling," she muttered, stepping aside to let him pass. He didn't pass. He stood in her way, voice low. "I'm not meddling. I'm telling them a force mate bond will do more harm than good. You know it too." His expression softened a fraction. "So, do you have a plan? Or will you keep rejecting them until the day the council drags you to the pyre?" Her stomach lurched. He'd voiced her worst fears so bluntly. She inhaled, forcing confidence into her tone. "I can handle myself. If it comes down to running, I'll run." He studied her, something like admiration flickering. "Or you could find an alpha who doesn't want to leash you," he said, voice quiet. "Someone who might fight beside you, not against you." She snorted, though her heart twisted. If such an alpha existed, I'd have accepted him by now. "I've been disappointed 7 times. He nodded, acknowledging that. "Then perhaps you haven't met the right kind of alpha." A beat of silence. "Let me guess, each one either tried to own you, or coddle you, or threatened you." She frowned. "Yes, that's how they operate. They see me as a prize or a weapon." A faint smirk curved his lips. "I'm not known for coddling, nor do I threaten lightly. But I see you as neither prize nor weapon." He hesitated, searching her eyes. "I see a woman who'd spit in the goddess's face before surrendering. And I respect that." Heat pooled in her chest. She hated how his words made her heart flutter. "You don't know me," she mumbled, stepping past him. But he followed, footsteps echoing. The corridor stretched ahead, quieter now. She cast him a side glance. "Are you always this persistent?" He offered a half shrug. "When something intrigues me, yes." She suppressed a rueful smile. "Fine. I'll humor you for a moment. Why are you truly here, Zev? If all you wanted was to watch me stir chaos, you've seen enough." He exhaled, gaze flicking to the archways overhead. "In my territory, I'm free to lead as I see fit. The rest of the packs, they cling to ancient laws. I came to see if there's anything worth forging alliances for. Then I heard about the Omega no Alpha could tame. And I thought, that might be interesting." His eyes returned to her. "Now I realize it's more than interesting. It's vital." She folded her arms, ignoring the quickening of her pulse. "Vital how?" His expression turned serious. "I sense a storm coming, bigger than the rogues. If the entire North collapses into chaos, it'll spread. My pack might be next. If an unstoppable Omega can unite with an Alpha in a new way, maybe we can shift the tide. Or maybe I'm just being selfish. Because I want to see if the bond with you might burn in a way that changes everything." The confession hung in the air, making her heart stutter. She parted her lips, uncertain how to respond. A swirl of confusion reeled inside her. He was spouting big words about forging alliances, changing old ways. Could that truly be possible, or was he just spinning fancy lines? She eyed him warily, but found no mockery in his face. "Don't expect me to fall into your arms," she said at last. "I won't. Not after all I've been through." He nodded. "I wouldn't want that. I prefer a mate who chooses me with open eyes." She flinched at the word mate. but he didn't press. When you're ready, we'll talk more. If you'd rather keep your dagger raised, I can respect that too. Just don't run until we've seen if there's truly something here. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The breath caught in her throat. That subtle mix of freedom and invitation left her reeling. She wanted to rail at him for presuming she might care. But a tiny voice inside whispered that maybe, just maybe, a bond with him wouldn't be a prison. She hated the flicker of hope that brought. He inclined his head, stepping back. "I'll let you go for now," he said, voice quiet, "but I'll find you soon. The blood moon doesn't wait." With that, he pivoted, strides echoing as he left her in the corridor. She stared after him, mind swirling, chest tight. Madness, she whispered to the silent air. She had no reason to trust him, yet her wolf side felt drawn to his raw aura. She swallowed. She had a choice to make, but not tonight. She retreated to her room again, heart pounding. Over the next hours, she wrestled with her thoughts, the looming rogue threat, the council's demands, the memory of his gentle but firm hand guiding her stance at the training yard. She tried to cling to her vow of absolute defiance, but the recollection of his words made something in her chest ache. When darkness fell again, she stared out her narrow window at the sliver of moon overhead, red creeping along its edge. In a matter of days, it would be fully crimson. She saw no straightforward path to safety. She either found a genuine bond or faced the council's punishment. She shivered. She didn't want to die. But she also refused to belong to someone unworthy. She pressed her forehead to the cold glass, ignoring the tremor in her limbs. Something told her that a storm was indeed coming, as Zev said, maybe bigger than any of them guessed. And somewhere in that swirling chaos, a silent, ruthless alpha watched her like she was already his. The thought thrilled and terrified her equally. She inhaled sharply, hearing the faintest scratch at her door again. A prickle of anticipation or dread slid down her spine. Was it him returning to continue their dangerous dance? Or a messenger from the council, bringing a new ultimatum? Her heart hammered, half wanting to fling the door open, half wanting to bar it forever. The scratch came again, gentle yet insistent. She exhaled, stepping forward, hand hovering over the latch. Outside, the night spread in deep hush, the corridor empty, unless a certain alpha stood waiting. She swallowed hard, bracing herself to face whatever fate lurked on the other side. Then she lifted the latch with trembling fingers, letting the door swing wide on the threshold between defiance and destiny. She lunged at him with a snarl, fury scorching her veins, but Kalen blocked her strike with effortless precision, his hand closing around her wrist before she could land the blow. Their gazes clashed in that instant, breath mingling in the heated air, and for a heartbeat she thought she might actually sink her teeth into his shoulder if it meant driving him away. Except he didn't even flinch. He just held her there, eyes dark as midnight, mouth curved in a faint, maddening smile. Elara hated the rush of awareness that pulsed through her blood whenever he touched her. She told herself it was just anger, that she wanted him gone. But her heart hammered in a way she refused to name. She jerked free, glaring so fiercely that if looks could kill, he'd be flattened on the council's polished training floor. Kalen merely raised his eyebrows, calm as ever. Around them, a ring of watchers exhaled shaky breaths. They'd come to see Elara, Omega Rebel, spar with the new Alpha as part of the council's ridiculous compatibility trial. She had no intention of proving compatibility with anyone, least of all him. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. "You're in my way," she hissed, voice echoing across the wide courtyard. Beyond the high walls, morning clouds veiled the sun, casting the space in a muted glow. She tried not to let the chill in the air seep into her bones. Kalen tilted his head. "Last time I checked, you attacked me." The ring of onlookers tittered nervously, some waiting for Elara's next outburst, others hoping the standoff might end with Kalen stomping her into submission. But she had other ideas. She wiped sweat from her brow, huffing in frustration. This trial was a setup by the council to see if she and Kalen could function as a team, as if that might force her to accept him. They'd already thrown them into a puzzle-solving challenge at dawn, then a timed run through the fortress halls. Now, the final event was a sparring match to test synergy. The council's words made her want to punch a hole through a wall. "I'm done playing your games," Elara snarled, eyes flicking to the stooped elder who stood at the edge, staff in hand, his stern face daring her to refuse. She swung her dagger in a wild arc, forcing Kalen to dodge or risk a slash to the ribs. He sidestepped smoothly, not even blinking. "Stop showing off," he muttered softly. "You're better than wild swings. Focus." His tone was maddeningly level, like he was giving her free advice. She bristled. "I don't need your guidance." Without warning, she feinted left, dropped low, and aimed a strike at his knees. He caught her wrist mid-lunge, again, and pinned her dagger arm behind her back, so swift that her breath caught. Fury surged. She twisted, using the momentum to pivot out of his hold, ignoring the tug of pain in her shoulder. The watchers gasped at her agility. She managed to free herself, but ended up chest to chest with Kalen, panting. He stared down at her, a flicker of surprise in his expression. She felt the wild hammer of her heart, the press of his body. Too close. Too warm. She shoved him away, blade raised. The stooped elder rapped his staff once, voice reedy with annoyance. "Enough. The trial is concluded. Both of you stand by." Elara froze mid-strike, shoulders tight, as a group of lesser officials hustled forward. One took her dagger from her hand. She almost punched him for the audacity, but then realized the council insisted all weapons be collected. She exhaled shakily, stepping back. The watchers parted, muttering. She caught snatches of conversation. "She won't be tamed. He won't break either." What if the council has no choice but to exile her? Or kill her? The blood moon's days away. This can't go on. The words grated on her nerves. She squared her shoulders, refusing to show fear. Kalen approached, calmer than the storms, arms folded. Not a hair out of place, even though they'd been at each other's throats. He surveyed her with that same intense gaze that burned her from within. She scowled. "You didn't do me any favors. I could have handled that spar alone." He cocked his head. "You lost your footing." "I wouldn't have if you hadn't." She clamped her mouth shut, realizing she sounded like a child making excuses. She took a slow breath, forcing her voice to steady. "Next time, stay out of my way." His lips curved in something too subtle to be a smile. "As you wish, until the council forces us together again." Her pulse spiked. She hated how they kept throwing them into these tests. She hated how the entire fortress gossiped about them as though they were the last piece of drama before the blood moon. She brushed past him, ignoring the uneasy flutter in her stomach when her shoulder grazed his arm. The stooped elder's voice rose above the crowd. "Elara, Kalen, we require you both for further evaluation." "Now." She stiffened, shooting Kalen a glare. He merely arched a brow, then strode toward the elder. She followed, knuckles clenched. The ring of watchers parted to let them pass. Tension hummed in the courtyard air. The elder gestured for them to stand before him, his staff tapping the stone with each step. "We have assessed your performance," he said briskly. "You completed the puzzle challenge with minimal cooperation. The timed run displayed some synergy, though mostly accidental. Your sparring match was chaotic." However, he paused, eyes narrowing. "We cannot deny that neither of you was subdued, nor did either of you yield. That suggests a certain complementing of wills, if not in the usual sense." Elara wanted to snort. Complementing of wills was a polite way of saying they both refused to lose. She shot Kalen a sideways look, expecting him to protest. Instead, he remained silent, face unreadable. The elder cleared his throat. "Given the precarious circumstances, your repeated rejections, Elara, and the looming blood moon, this council is inclined to observe your partnership further. If you can demonstrate genuine cooperation, perhaps you need not be exiled. Or worse." She forced her jaw not to clench at that veiled threat. "And if I fail? If we fail?" The elder's gaze flicked to Kalen, then back to her. "Then I fear the council's hands will be tied. We cannot allow an unstable Omega to roam free." Anger flared behind her eyes, but she choked it down. She'd heard the threat a dozen times. "Understood," she managed, voice tense. Kalen spoke up suddenly, his tone cold but calm. "Then we'll continue as you require." He threw a glance at Elara. "Unless she'd rather I step aside now." Her heart skipped. She bristled, suspecting it was a test. Did she want him gone? She parted her lips, about to say yes, but the memory of the council's final threat stung. If Kalen left, they might just hand her over to some other alpha or end her outright. She swallowed. "We'll continue," she ground out. She wasn't sure if she hated him more or the council. The elder nodded curtly, relief flashing in his eyes. "Then this trial is concluded. We shall reconvene tomorrow for a formal hearing. Elara, do not attempt to flee. Kalen, remain in the fortress for the time being. The council will finalize your ongoing role." With that, the elder turned, staff clicking as he hobbled away. The throng of watchers dispersed quickly, leaving Elara standing face to face with Kalen in a hush that pressed in on them. She glared at him, crossing her arms. He lifted his hand slightly, palm up, an oddly open gesture. "If you want to fight me again," he said, voice almost teasing, "give me an hour to rest first." She snorted, stepping backward. Her body still hummed from their clash. She felt the faint scratch of the stone floor under her heel, the twinge in her arm from his grip. "I don't want to fight you," she muttered. "I want you gone." But apparently that's not an option. His expression flickered with the barest hint of amusement. "It's an option if you truly wish it. I told you, I'm not here to force anything. But leaving you to the council's wrath while the blood moon creeps closer, that doesn't sit right with me." An inexplicable knot formed in her throat. She tried to ignore it, tilting her chin up. "I don't need your pity." He exhaled. "It's not pity. It's respect. You survived 7 alphas who tried to claim you. That demands more than pity. It demands caution. And yes, I find that intriguing." She rolled her eyes, refusing to let warmth blossom at his words. "I'm not some puzzle for you to solve. I'd rather stand alone." He dipped his head, acknowledging her words. "You're free to do so. But the council's giving us no choice. They've put us together as if hoping we'll form some unstoppable union. Or at least keep you from the grave." So maybe stop trying to rip my throat out for 5 minutes, and we can see if we can outmaneuver them instead. She inhaled, bracing her shoulders. The idea that they might outmaneuver the council together was oddly tempting. Fine. Let's see if you're more useful as an ally than an enemy. She paused, scowl deepening. But if you cross me, I'll make sure you regret it. A faint curve touched his lips again, a ghost of a smirk. I believe you. Then he turned and strode away, leaving her with a confusing swirl of annoyance, grudging respect, and a flicker of something else, curiosity or attraction. She swallowed hard. This was all insane. She'd never encountered an alpha who matched her so evenly, who neither cowered nor attacked blindly. She forced the thoughts aside, needing a moment to breathe without him overshadowing her. Later that day, she found herself in a dusty corner of the fortress library, searching ancient scrolls for any mention of a blood moon loophole that might spare her from forced mating or execution. The council's dogma insisted her only salvation lay in bonding with a rightful alpha. But maybe the old texts held a secret alternative. A glimmer of hope. She ran her finger down crinkled parchment, squinting at faded ink. Occasionally, she paused to rub the ache in her wrist where Kalen had grabbed her earlier. His strength unsettled her. She also recalled the light in his eyes when she landed a blow on him. He looked almost proud, like he admired her ferocity. The memory made her stomach flutter. Infuriating. She shook her head, returning to the scroll. Words blurred, speaking of old prophecies, star alignments. Nothing helpful. She shoved it aside with a frustrated sigh. At this rate, she'd be at the council's mercy. She closed her eyes, leaning back in the creaking chair. Maybe I should run, she thought, before the final hearing. But that would brand her a rogue, and the entire northern Pax might hunt her down. The library door squeaked open. She stiffened, hearing slow footsteps approach. She prayed it wasn't a council official telling her to leave. A shadow fell across her table. She opened her eyes, scowl at the ready only to find Kalen there, arms crossed. Her heart kicked in her chest. You have a habit of sneaking up on me, she accused quietly, pushing the scroll away. He shrugged, glancing at the stacks of books. You're the one hiding in corners. Makes you easy to corner. She glowered, ignoring the mild amusement in his tone. What do you want? He pulled out a chair, straddling it in a casual motion. Thought you'd want to know the council's next move. They're planning a demonstration for tomorrow, some test of skill. If we pass it as a pair, we keep stalling them. If we fail, well, he trailed off, letting her imagination fill in the rest. Death or exile. She exhaled, tension coiling. More trials, more nonsense. She rubbed her temple. I can't keep dancing to their tune. His voice dropped. They're desperate. The rogue attacks worsen. They need stability. An omega with your potential is either a threat or a solution. She met his gaze, so close now she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes. So you're telling me we either pretend to be, what? Mated in spirit? Just to appease them? He hesitated, lines of conflict crossing his face. I won't force false intimacy. But if we can show them we can work together, that might buy us both time to figure out if there's more here. She bristled, the mention of more here stoking that uneasy flame inside her. She recalled the electric charge in her chest whenever they clashed. The maddening sense that they matched each other blow for blow. She shifted her focus to the dusty books. Fine, she muttered. I'll pretend for one day. But don't get any ideas about me swooning into your arms. A faint grin touched his lips. I wouldn't dream of it. He rose from the chair, gaze lingering on her. We meet at dawn in the courtyard. Bring your best game face. The council expects a spectacle. She scowled, hating the entire situation. Let them watch me. I'm not here to entertain them. His grin widened a hair. You're entertaining me plenty. Then he turned to leave, pausing at the door. Don't stay up all night reading gloom and doom. You'll need rest. She fumed silently as he slipped out. The nerve. But she couldn't deny the faint relief that he was working with her rather than forcing her. She stared at the empty doorway, heart fluttering with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Tomorrow, another trial. Another chance to see if they truly clashed, or maybe, just maybe, could stand side by side. Morning arrived in a rush of tension and hurried footsteps. Elara donned a simple tunic, breeches, and boots, ready for action. The council had turned the main courtyard into a trial ground of sorts, with obstacles and targets arranged in a winding course. She recognized it as a test of agility and teamwork. A crowd gathered, including lesser pack members craning their necks from the balconies above. She inhaled deeply, scanning for Kalen. He emerged from the fortress interior, dressed in dark leathers that hugged his tall frame. She felt a quickening in her pulse at the sight. He approached, no words, just a cool nod. The stooped elder raised his staff, calling for silence. Today's test demands cooperation. You must navigate each station in pairs, ensuring success in tasks ranging from archery to puzzle locks. The elder's gaze flicked pointedly at Elara. No sabotage or you both fail. Elara lifted her chin, defiance curling her lips. Kalen leaned close, voice low. Ready to pretend we're a functional duo? She shot him a side glare. Let's get this over with. With that, they stepped to the starting line. The elder dropped a small flag. A hush fell, and they leapt into action. The first station, cross a balance beam suspended over a shallow pit. She started forward, arms out, ignoring the pit's depth. Kalen followed behind, surprisingly steady. When she nearly slipped, he reached out, gripping her elbow. She flashed him a dark look but didn't shake him off. She grudgingly accepted his help. They made it across. The next station, a locked chest that required pieces from two separate corners of the courtyard to open. She sprinted left, he sprinted right. They returned almost simultaneously, puzzle pieces in hand. She fumbled with the chest's lock, lips twisted in frustration. He gently nudged her aside, fitting them in with calm precision. The chest popped open, revealing the next clue. She didn't thank him, but mentally admitted she was impressed. A riddle scrawled on parchment led them to the archery range. A single target perched at the far end of a corridor. We have 3 arrows, she muttered, scanning the text. We must hit the bullseye in unison? She looked up, seeing 2 bows and 3 arrows total. That meant if either missed, they might fail. Great, she grumbled. I'm no archery champion. He stepped behind her, setting a hand lightly at her waist. She stiffened. Relax your shoulders, he said. Focus on the target, not on me. She wanted to snap at him, but a swirl of heat flared in her belly. She forced herself to breathe, knocking an arrow. He did the same. They drew back in tandem. The watchers murmured. She tried to ignore the prickle of self-consciousness. A single heartbeat passed, then they released. The arrows flew, whistling side by side. They struck near the center, close enough that the watchers cheered. The stooped elder's staff struck the ground in acknowledgement. She exhaled relief, lowering the bow. Kalen's gaze flicked to her, a quiet gleam in his eyes. She rolled her shoulders, refusing to let gratitude slip out. But her chest felt unexpectedly light. They were succeeding, and the council seemed impressed. They continued through more stations, each requiring a moment of grudging cooperation. She noticed how he never once tried to overshadow her, nor did he step aside to let her do it alone. Instead, he matched her pace, letting her shine where she excelled, stepping in when she faltered. She hated how smoothly they worked together. Hated and appreciated it. Finally, they reached the last station, a short labyrinth. A central puzzle awaited, locked behind a steel gate. She approached, scanning the gate's mechanism, rotating gears, runes etched in metal. We have to trigger the runes in sequence, she mused. One misstep might seal it forever. The watchers murmured, tension high. Kalen stepped close, scanning the runes with a frown. She pointed out a faint pattern. Look, these symbols align with the old Wolf-Lore constellations. We have to press them in star order. But I only know half the sequence. She glanced up, meeting his gaze. Do you know the rest? His brow creased. My pack's libraries taught me a bit. They dropped to a crouch, conferring in hushed tones. She hammered out the portion she knew. He corrected her on the final star alignment. Time ticked away. The watchers leaned in, anticipating either victory or catastrophic failure. Elara pressed the first rune, then the second. No error so far. She swallowed, pressing the third, the fourth. The gate's gears began to whirl. A hush fell. She and Kalen exchanged a quick look. Together, they pressed the last two runes in unison. A jolt rippled through the gate. Then it slid open with a groan of ancient metal. Applause burst from the crowd. She let out a trembling breath, stepping back. Kalen placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, a silent acknowledgement that they'd done it. She turned to face the stooped elder, who wore a grimly satisfied expression. Impressive, the elder intoned, staff thumping. You have passed the trial. Then, more softly, it seems you two can indeed work together. Elara's stomach turned. This success might mean more pressure from the council to finalize a bond. She half wished they had messed up. But the watchers were already buzzing with excitement, calling the trial a success. She glimpsed a few bitter faces among the alphas who'd once vied for her. Their resentment glowed like hot coals. She stiffened. She knew all too well how easily envy could spark violence. The stooped elder beckoned them forward. She and Kalen complied, tension swirling. The elder's eyes shone with relief. We shall speak more at the next hearing. For now, well done. You may go. Elara nodded, stepping away, her heart still pounding. As the crowd dispersed, she noticed Kalen at her side, silent. She debated telling him to leave her alone. Yet she found her voice caught in her throat. She hated to admit it, but a small part of her felt safer with him near. They slipped into a quieter corridor, watchers fading behind them. She slowed her pace, turning to face him. Well, she said, crossing her arms. We survived. He nodded, eyes shadowed. You were good out there. A flicker of warmth touched her cheeks. She tried to mask it with a shrug. You too, she murmured grudgingly. But this changes nothing. The council can't force me to bond. His lips pressed together. Agreed. They can't force me either. He paused, searching her face. But that doesn't mean I don't want to see if we could choose differently. Together. She opened her mouth to fire back a retort, but a sudden shout cut through the corridor. She jerked her head around, heart lurching. The next instant, a figure lunged from the shadows, a male with eyes blazing, brandishing a short blade. It was Darius, one of the alphas she'd rejected months before. She recognized the scar on his cheek, the hatred in his sneer. "You'd rather bond with this northern dog than me?" He spat at her, voice trembling with rage. "You humiliated me. I won't let you enjoy your victory." Elara's pulse spiked. She stepped back instinctively, hand flying to her empty belt. She'd surrendered her dagger earlier. Darius advanced, blade glinting. "I should have claimed you by force," he snarled. "But now, I think I'll just cut you down." Her stomach lurched. She tried to brace for a fight, though unarmed. But Kalen was faster. A savage growl tore from his throat, eyes flashing with unrestrained fury. He lunged at Darius, intercepting the blade with a jarring clash of arms. Darius reeled back in shock. Elara's breath caught. She'd never seen Kalen so unhinged. A fierce, animalistic aura poured off him, so potent it made the corridor feel too small. Darius tried to slash again, but Kalen twisted, disarming him with brutal efficiency. The blade clattered across the stones. Kalen gripped Darius by the collar, slamming him against the wall. Darius's eyes widened in terror. You can't kill me." "The council." Kalen's lips curled, revealing a flicker of canine-like sharpness. "You threatened her," he hissed, voice thick with a primal edge. "I don't care about the council." Elara felt a chill race up her spine. Kalen was close to losing control. She saw the raw alpha power in his stance, the lethal promise in his eyes. If he ended Darius right here, the council would brand him a murderer, all blame landing squarely on Elara's shoulders. She had to intervene. Heart hammering, she stepped forward. "Kalen, stop." His gaze snapped to her, wild. She exhaled slowly, forcing her voice to steady. "He's not worth it. Let him face the council's punishment for assault. Don't stain your hands with his blood." For a heartbeat, she feared he wouldn't listen. Rage pulsed through him like a living thing. But gradually his grip loosened. Darius slid down the wall, coughing, fear etched in his face. Kalen's chest heaved, still trembling with fury. Then, with deliberate slowness, he turned from Darius, stepping back to Elara's side. She placed a cautious hand on his arm, feeling the residual tension coiling in his muscles. Darius staggered to his feet, eyes darting around for an escape. A pair of fortress guards rushed in, alerted by the noise. They seized Darius before he could flee. He spat curses, but his voice trembled. The guards dragged him away, presumably to the council. Elara breathed a shaky sigh of relief, the corridor quieting again. She realized her hand remained on Kalen's arm. She tried to pull away, but he caught her fingertips gently, gaze flicking to her face. There, in the hush, she felt the heat of his skin, the pounding of her own heart. Something shifted in the air. Her mark tingled. Their eyes locked. For one breathless moment, she sensed a swirl of warmth, an undercurrent of electricity. It was as if the space between them contracted. Then, their hands brushed palm to palm, fingers intertwining for the briefest heartbeat. A bolt of molten fire raced up her arm. She gasped, feeling the mate mark blaze across her wrist like living flame. A terrified thrill jolted her, and from the widened look in Kalen's eyes, he felt it too. Their marks, both rumored dormant or defunct, ignited in a swirl of silver and gold glow, visible for only a flicker. The corridor's torchlight seemed to dim in comparison. She yanked her hand back, breath catching, eyes wide with shock. He stood there, equally stunned, chest heaving. Silence roared in her ears. Her mind reeled. Mate mark. That was the mate mark. She'd never felt anything like it before. Not with the 7 suitors she'd rejected. This was new, potent, terrifying. He parted his lips as if to speak, but words died in his throat. She took a shaky step back, pressing her hand to her wrist, the after sensation still burning. This couldn't be happening. She refused to let fate tie her to an alpha, no matter how different he seemed. Fear twisted in her stomach. Her voice finally broke free in a trembling whisper. No, this can't be real. The way he looked at her made her heart twist painfully. A maelstrom of desire and confusion warred in his gaze. She swallowed, turning on her heel and bolting down the corridor before he could stop her. She had no idea where she was running, only that she needed to get away from that impossible glow on her skin. The corridor blurred, and she felt tears threaten. She rushed around a corner, heart crashing in her chest, the memory of that burning mark searing her mind. Behind her, she heard Kaylin call her name, voice raw with something that sounded like longing or desperation. She didn't dare look back, because if she did, she might see the truth in his eyes, the same truth scorching her wrist, that despite all her defiance, destiny had chosen them. And she wasn't ready to face that. She could still taste his fury in the air, a tangible thing, like electric sparks dancing on her skin. Elara paced frantically in her chamber, ignoring the dawn light that crept through the tiny window. She felt trapped by the council, by her own vow to remain unclaimed, and now by this shocking revelation that some raw, undeniable bond existed between her and Kaylin. She wanted to tear it from her flesh. She wanted to tear him from her thoughts. Yet her chest clenched whenever she pictured how he'd defended her, nearly destroying that rival alpha in a heartbeat. She didn't ask for protection, but the memory of Kaylin's savage snarl made her skin tingle. An alpha who would kill for her. That was precisely what she'd tried to avoid, wasn't it? Overbearing, possessive men. But it felt different from the others. A quiet voice in her head whispered that he'd done it not to dominate her, but because he simply couldn't bear the threat to her life. She pressed shaking fingers over the mark on her wrist. It was dormant now, no glow, no searing heat. But she remembered the flash all too well, that moment of bridging flesh and destiny. I don't want to need him, she muttered fiercely. I refuse. A knock at her door startled her. She froze, heart leaping. Elara, a muffled voice called. A caretaker again, or maybe a guard. The council requests your presence in the main hall. She exhaled a low curse. Another hearing, presumably to discuss the fiasco with Darius. Or maybe they discovered the bond she'd ignited with Kaylin. A swirl of dread flitted in her gut. She forced herself upright. She refused to let them see her shaken. Tying her hair back, she shoved the door open and followed the messenger down the corridor. The main hall thrummed with tension. Elders, betas, a handful of alphas. She recognized a few resentful faces from among the 7 who'd tried to claim her. Darius wasn't there, probably still locked up after that assault. Good. She also spotted Kaylin, leaning against a tall column, arms crossed. She tried to avoid his gaze, but the moment she entered, his eyes found her. A tremor coursed through her limbs. She yanked her attention to the stooped elder instead, focusing on the staff tapping the floor. The elder cleared his throat. Elara, Kaylin, Step forward. She swallowed, crossing the marble floor to stand at the center again. Kaelin joined her, presence humming with that same intangible power. She forced herself not to flinch away. The elder regarded them with guarded eyes. We have reviewed yesterday's assault. Alpha Darius is detained for threatening your life, Elara. You remain under this council's protection until further notice. She nodded stiffly. Thank you, she managed, though she doubted they did it out of kindness. The elder pressed his thin lips together. We also have a more pressing concern. It seems we have reason to suspect a mate bond forming between you two. Murmurs rippled across the hall. Elara's chest constricted. They must have overheard someone mention the glow or suspect from the corridor scuffle. The elder continued, if that is true, the old law states you are bound by the next full moon. But we are mindful that you have repeatedly refused all bonds, Elara. And Kaelin, you have not forcibly claimed her. He paused, measuring their reactions. Thus, we ask, do you both deny or confirm this bond? If you confirm it, we have procedures to expedite the mating before the blood moon. If you deny, we will test you again or consider alternative measures. A hush draped the crowd. Elara's heart hammered. She recalled the flash of heat across her wrist. She squeezed her eyes shut, wanting to scream denial. She wasn't ready. She refused to be forced. She parted her lips, about to speak. But Kaelin's voice came first, quiet yet resonant. We neither confirm nor deny. The bond is ours to decide upon, not yours. We will not allow it to be hastily claimed by law or by council decree. If you wish to test us further, do so. But we keep the final choice. A wave of shock rolled through the watchers. The elder's mouth fell open. Elara stared at Kaelin, breath-catching. She hated how her chest glowed with relief at his stance. She swallowed, forcing a nod. He speaks for me as well, she said in a low voice, ignoring the strangeness of aligning herself with him. I won't confirm what I haven't chosen. A commotion spread, half the watchers outraged that they'd defy the old law, half enthralled by the rebellious stand. The elder rapped his staff, face contorted with exasperation. This is irregular, he snapped. The blood moon is too close for half measures. We demand clarity. Kaelin's expression turned steely. You can demand all you like. We will not be rushed. Elara bit back a shaky breath. She admired his calm defiance, though it terrified her as well. Did he truly intend to stand between her and the council's wrath? The elder looked ready to explode. Instead, he exhaled slowly. Very well, he grumbled. We cannot force a final claiming. But do not expect indefinite patience. The next hearing is in 3 days. We will have an answer or we will act. He turned to Elara, voice grim. Pray you make peace with your heart before then. With that, the council session ended abruptly. The watchers dispersed amid urgent whispers. Elara felt drained, her mind spinning. She turned to Kaelin, throat tight. Why did you speak for me like that? She demanded, voice cracking with confusion. He studied her, gaze shaded with something gentle. Because you didn't want to confirm the bond. I wasn't about to let them corner you. A pause. Or me. She swallowed, a wave of emotion cresting inside her. So you just shielded me from them, even though you could have forced the matter? He shrugged, not meeting her eyes. I told you. Choose me or walk away. I meant it. Her chest ached with conflicting feelings, relief, gratitude, suspicion, longing. She hated how his quiet strength made her heart flutter. She forced out a bitter laugh. That's your brilliant strategy then? Wait until I come crawling to you. He arched a brow, expression pained. I'd prefer you walk beside me, not crawl. But yes, I'll wait. Tension coiled, thick and charged. She realized they stood alone now in the hall, the crowd gone. She wanted to flee or lash out, but confusion froze her. The memory of that scorching mate mark flickered in her mind. She pressed her lips together, stepping back. I need time, she whispered, voice unsteady. He nodded once, turning away, giving her space. Take it, he murmured, heading for the corridor. She watched him go, heart pounding. He left her there with a swirl of unspoken words in her throat. She stared at the mosaic on the floor, trying to gather her breath. He was letting her choose. She was so used to violence or manipulation from alphas. This was new, terrifying in its gentleness. She spent the next day avoiding him, throwing herself into small tasks around the fortress, ignoring the curious stares of lesser pack members. Everyone suspected something was brewing between her and Kaylin. She refused to answer questions. At night, she paced her tiny room, thoughts circling. She didn't want him. The memory of that lethal spark at the corridor, the near destruction of Darius, the quiet conversation in the library, all warred with her vow to remain unclaimed. Then, on the second evening, trouble struck. She'd crept out to the courtyard for fresh air, hoping to walk alone under the moon's glow. She saw the shape too late, someone lurking behind a pillar. A hiss of rage cut through the night. Before she could react, a figure lunged, smashing into her shoulder, sending her crashing to the ground. Her head hit stone, vision sparking. She moaned, pain lancing her skull. A dark silhouette loomed overhead, the glint of a blade. She recognized the voice, one of the alphas she'd rejected after Orin, furious at losing his chance. You think you can humiliate me and walk free? He snarled. I'll make sure you never see that blood moon. Terror gripped her. She scrambled backward, but her body ached. Her hand groped for her dagger. She'd started carrying it again, though the council frowned on it. She managed to yank it free, brandishing it at him. He kicked out, sending her weapon flying. A wave of despair crashed over her. Was this how she'd end, knifed in a dark courtyard because she refused to bow? A growl shattered the darkness. Her attacker stiffened, spinning around. Kaylin emerged from the corridor with furious speed, eyes blazing. Elara's heart soared with relief, even though she despised needing rescue. Kaylin bared his teeth, a raw alpha snarl that echoed in the courtyard. The attacker faltered, but still thrust the blade at Kaylin in a desperate lunge. Kaylin deflected, fist crashing into the alpha's face with brutal force. The man went down hard. Kaylin pounced, kneeling on his chest, arm drawn back for a final blow that looked savage enough to kill. The attacker cowered, shrieking. Elara's pulse thundered. She scrambled up, ignoring her throbbing head. Kaylin, she gasped, voice tight with pain. Don't, you'll face the council's wrath. His eyes, wild with protective rage, flicked to her. She saw his knuckles whiten, ready to end this man. Fear coiled in her gut. She pressed trembling fingers to Kaylin's shoulder. He's not worth it, she whispered, echoing the words she'd used with Darius. Please. For a long, terrible moment, she thought he'd ignore her. Then his raised fist slowly lowered. He exhaled, chest heaving. The attacker coughed, squirming. Kaylin released him with a snarl, shoving him aside. The alpha scuttled backward, bleeding from the mouth, eyes wide with terror. Guards rushed in, alerted by the commotion, seizing him. Kalen stood, turning to Elara, concern eclipsing his anger. She pressed a hand to her temple, wincing. He gently reached out, fingertips brushing her cheek. "You're bleeding," he murmured. Sure enough, she felt a trickle of warmth. The blow to her head had broken skin. She inhaled shakily, letting him steady her. Her chest hammered at his nearness. The guards dragged the attacker off for the council's judgment. Kalen guided Elara to a bench by the courtyard's edge, ignoring the prying eyes. He crouched beside her, expression fierce with worry. "Are you dizzy?" he asked, voice low. "I can carry you to the healers." She blinked, tears stinging her eyes unbidden. She despised feeling vulnerable, but her head throbbed. "I'll manage," she croaked. Then she forced a small, bitter laugh. "Seems every alpha I reject tries to kill me eventually." His jaw clenched. "They won't keep trying, not if they value their lives." She wanted to snap at him for sounding possessive, but she couldn't muster the venom. Instead, she studied him in the moonlight, noticing the tension in his shoulders, the anger that still lingered. He'd nearly lost control again, all for her. She swallowed. "Why do you care so much?" she whispered, raw confusion leaking into her tone. He pressed his lips together, gaze flicking from her wrist to her face. "Because he hesitated. "I can't stand seeing you hurt. Or threatened. Doesn't matter if we haven't decided anything yet. My wolf. I can't explain it. He roars whenever you're in danger." Her heart twisted. She recalled the mark's glow, the savage protectiveness in his eyes. It resonated with a deep part of her that she'd tried to bury. Fear, longing, all tangled up. "I'm not your responsibility," she mumbled, though her tone lacked conviction. He exhaled, brushing hair from her face. "I know, but I'm not walking away." Emotion clogged her throat. She forced a shaky sigh. "Why?" she breathed, hating the tremor in her voice. "You could pick an easier Omega, someone who'd kneel, who wouldn't fight you at every turn." He smiled, small but genuine. "I don't want easy. I want real." Then, quieter, "And I suspect you do too, no matter how hard you fight it." Her head throbbed. She pressed a hand to the cut, cursing softly. Kalen gently helped her stand. "Come," he said. "Let's get that looked at." She wavered between snapping that she could walk alone and the woozy reality that she might collapse if she tried. In the end, she let him slip an arm around her waist, guiding her to the fortress healers. Her face burned with mingled embarrassment and relief. He left her with the healers, stepping outside to let them work. They cleaned and bandaged the wound, fussing about how precarious her situation was. She half listened, wanting only to rest. When they finished, she slipped away to find Kalen waiting in the corridor, arms folded, protective tension still in his posture. She approached, heart beating faster than she liked. He studied her face. "Feeling better?" She nodded, arms hugging herself. "Yes, just sore." An awkward silence stretched. "Thank you for stepping in." He shrugged, a flicker of self-consciousness crossing his face. "I'd have done it for anyone." A brief pause, "But especially you." Her chest tightened. She forced a short laugh. "Careful. I might get the idea you want me to trust you." He met her gaze, unflinching. "I do." Heat rushed to her cheeks. She opened her mouth to fling sarcasm, but something in his expression made her falter. She inhaled, glancing away. She wasn't sure if she could endure trusting another alpha, even one who treated her differently. But her defenses wavered. Maybe, she whispered, voice barely audible. His eyes gleamed with surprise and something like hope. He offered his arm gently, not demanding, just an invitation. She hesitated, then lightly rested her fingers on it. A swirl of warmth coiled in her belly. They walked together down the corridor, slower this time. She dreaded the council's reaction to this latest attack. She dreaded the final hearing. But for a fleeting moment, having him by her side felt right. Yet late that night, alone in her chamber, she couldn't sleep. She tried to ignore how her wrist tingled, remembering how the mark flared with Kalen's touch. Each time she closed her eyes, she pictured the swirl of silver gold across their skin. She told herself it was pure biology, an omega-alpha bond. She told herself she'd break it if she could. But the memory of his savage snarl defending her, the gentle way he cradled her after, wouldn't leave her. She paced the floor, heart heavy with conflicting desires. She didn't want him. She was terrified. Terrified of losing her freedom, terrified that maybe surrendering to this bond wouldn't be a cage, but a new kind of liberation, one that ignited her in ways she'd never known. And she had no idea how to cope with that. As dawn neared, she caught a faint knock on her door, soft, hesitant. She froze, every sense on alert. What if it was Kalen, coming to push for a decision? Or a different alpha, seeking revenge? She placed a hand on her bandaged temple, swallowing thickly. The knock came again, more urgent. Elara, a low voice murmured from outside, familiar, trembling with some unknown tension. She stared at the door, breath ragged. Did she dare let him in? Or would she keep denying the burning truth that shivered through her veins each time she remembered the mark's glow? Lightning flickered in the sky beyond the tiny window, a storm gathering on the horizon. She reached for the latch, heart pounding, uncertain which path to choose. And in that heartbeat of indecision, everything hung in precarious balance, her future, her heart, the choice that might define them both forever. A vase smashes into 1,000 pieces at Elara's feet, shards skidding across the marble floor. She doesn't even remember throwing it, only the raw frustration clawing her throat when another council messenger sneered that if she won't submit, she should prepare to die. Blood moon or not, they want her docile. And Elara? She feels close to snapping. Her chest heaves with ragged breaths, heart pounding so fiercely she can hardly hear. She's barricaded herself in the deserted side hall of the fortress, some forgotten gallery with old portraits and ancient tapestries. The shattered vase was once a decorative piece. Now it's an explosion of bright porcelain, reflecting her fury. She tightens her trembling fists. Is that all it takes, a single push for her to lose control? She hears footsteps. Her whole body stiffens, expecting guards. Instead, it's Kalen. He rounds the corner like a dark promise, jaw set, eyes flaring with concern when he sees the shards on the floor. He doesn't say a word. He just watches her from a distance of 5 or 6 paces, arms loose at his sides. She hates that a swirl of relief floods her system at the sight of him, hates that she needs him to breathe right now. What happened? He asks quietly, stepping around the broken debris. Moonlight from a narrow window spills across his cheekbones, painting half his face in ghostly silver. She forces herself to swallow. The council. They said if I won't claim you, they'll enforce an immediate correction. My life's not mine, apparently. She tries to let out a bitter laugh, but it emerges as a strangled cough. I lost my temper. He exhales, glancing at the shards. Obviously, he murmurs. Then he lifts his gaze to hers, gentle but laced with tension. They're pushing you harder. They want a final answer, no more stalling. She kicks a stray fragment with her boot. I know, she growls. But I can't just throw myself into a mate bond. Even if the mark, she breaks off, cursing under her breath. The memory of that scorching spark still haunts her wrist. She rubs the spot absently. He takes a slow step forward, not quite touching her. I told you. I'm not forcing a bond. But I won't stand by while they threaten your life. His voice dips lower. Let me help. Let's find a way to keep you safe, even if you still refuse me in the end. A wave of conflicting emotions storms through her. She wants to snap that she needs no savior, but the truth? She's cornered, terrified. The entire fortress bristles with hostility. She lifts her chin, focusing on the swirling dust motes in the moonlight. The council said if we don't finalize things by tomorrow's hearing, they'll publicly name me a rogue. That means a death sentence, or worse, permanent captivity. Her breath hitches. I don't see a path forward. He brushes a hand through his dark hair, frustration rippling. They want to break you, Elara. His gaze flickers with anger. But there's another option. We can leave. Together. Her heart thuds. Leave? A short nod, tension coiling in his shoulders. Run from this fortress, from their rules. My territory lies far to the north. We could cross the mountains, be beyond their reach. At least until the blood moon passes. She steps back, nearly stumbling on a piece of porcelain. Instantly, he's there, catching her elbow to steady her. She flinches, hating how the brush of his skin sends a pulse of heat up her arm. Running makes me a traitor, she whispers, mind racing. And you'd lose your standing. Possibly your own pack would turn on you. He shrugs, though his eyes are bleak. Better that than watch them kill you. She's speechless for a moment. Then a bitter laugh escapes her. You're insane. A ghost of a smile touches his lips. Probably. Silence. She stares at the broken shards, recalling how easily she can shatter under the council's pressure. She's never known to belong anywhere, not after the first few alphas tried to cage her. But if she doesn't have a place to stand, she's as good as dead. She exhales shakily, forcing her gaze up to his. If we go, they'll hunt us. His voice turns grim. Yes, but at least we stand a chance. In these walls, you have none. A pause. And I can't keep deflecting them without sacrificing my own alliances. So we break away. She imagines the two of them on the run, side by side, forging a path across rugged mountains. The idea sends a thrill of fear and odd excitement through her veins. I haven't even chosen you, she mutters. This bond, whatever it is, I never agreed to it. He meets her eyes. I know. We can break it if you truly want. But not here. Not under their knives. Let's do it on our own terms. She hesitates, pulses hammering in her ears. Is that even possible, to break a mate bond once it's sparked? The old stories say it's excruciating, sometimes lethal. But maybe it's better than letting the council force them into a union she's not ready for. She lifts her chin, searching his face. We'd be fugitives. Better fugitives than captives. She closes her eyes, chest tight with dread. They might kill us both. Or we might kill each other. She tries to laugh, but it's shaky. We're not exactly a harmonious duo. He reaches out, gently lifting a lock of her hair off her cheek, as if testing her reaction. "We'll manage," he says softly. "Or we'll tear each other apart. Either way, it'll be our choice." His closeness stirs that familiar warmth low in her belly. She curses inwardly. Why does he have to be so calm, so maddeningly sure? She steps back, crossing her arms as if to shield herself. "Give me until midnight," she says hoarsely. "I'll decide then." He nods, stepping away respectfully. "I'll wait in the western courtyard. If you come, we leave tonight." She swallows. He leaves her alone with the broken shards, tension sparking behind her eyes. She wonders if she's truly prepared to toss her entire life away for a man she refuses to trust, yet can't resist. Because once she crosses that line, there's no going back. Midnight. The fortress is unnaturally quiet, a hush falling like a velvet curtain. Torches gutter in the halls, leaving corridors in flickering half-light. Elara slips from her tiny room, bag slung over her shoulder. She's packed what little she owns, a spare set of clothes, her battered dagger, the silver comb that once belonged to her mother. Her heart thrashes so loudly she wonders if guards can hear it. Each step feels irreversible. She wonders if she's insane for entertaining Kalen's plan. But the alternative, a forced bonding or execution, looms in her mind. She can't let them break her. So she glides along the hallway, pressing herself to the shadows. Any moment, she expects guards. But luck or fate guides her steps. She creeps into the western courtyard. Moonlight bathes the stone in pale silver. At first, she sees no one. Her pulse skitters. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe she's alone. Then, a shape detaches from the gloom, a tall figure leaning against the archway. She recognizes the set of those broad shoulders, the glint of his dark eyes. "You came," he says quietly, stepping forward. She sees relief flash across his face. She forces her chin up, ignoring the trembling in her limbs. "Don't read into it," she mutters, voice wavering. "I'm not choosing you. I'm choosing survival." He inclines his head. "Understood." Yet she senses a flicker of warmth in his voice. "We have a narrow window. Let's go." He offers his hand. She hesitates only a heartbeat before ignoring it, walking past him. She can feel his soft exhale, maybe amusement, maybe resignation. The fortress gate, heavily guarded by night, stands at the far end of a covered walkway. They hurry in the shadows. Kalen murmurs that he bribed a guard to leave one side gate unlatched. She lifts a brow at his cunning. Sure enough, they find a small postern gate, dusty from disuse, and slip through. The instant cool air of the outside world hits her face, and her heart leaps with a strange, reckless joy. They make their way across the open field, crouched low, avoiding the main roads. The sky overhead glimmers with stars, the moon high and pregnant with red-hued promise. The blood moons nearly upon them. Dread coalesces in her belly. But she keeps walking, Kalen at her side, footsteps light on dew-slick grass. For a fleeting moment, she tastes freedom, an exhale that doesn't reek of walls and the council's watchful eyes. Behind them, the fortress recedes into darkness. She half expects an alarm to ring out, torches flaring. But the night remains eerily silent. They slip into the forest's edge, branches rustling overhead. Kalen leads, forging a path with silent confidence, as though he's memorized the route. She follows, pressing a hand to her pounding heart. Are they truly escaping? Minutes stretch into an hour of stealthy travel. At last, They pause in a clearing, breath fogging in the cool night air. Kaelin turns, scanning the trees. "We'll rest here a moment," he says softly. "Then push on until dawn." She drops her bag, collapsing against the trunk of a gnarled oak, adrenaline wearing off. He kneels beside her, expression grave. "You all right?" She closes her eyes, letting the smell of pine and damp leaves envelop her. "Yes, just a lot." He nods. "I know." He hesitates, voice falling to a murmur. "This is your last chance to change your mind. If you want to go back." She snorts, though it's a weary sound. "I've come this far. No going back." She glances at him from the corner of her eye. "But this doesn't mean I've accepted the bond." He drops his gaze, nodding. "Understood. We'll break it if that's what you want." Silence blooms, heavy with unspoken tension. She wonders if it's truly possible to break a bond. The old stories mention heartbreak, physical pain, sometimes madness. She shivers, hugging herself. "How do we even do that?" Kaelin's jaw tightens. "We'd need a ritual, one that rips the primal tie from our wolves. It's not common or safe, but I know of a hermit who might help. She lives beyond the pass." A flicker of sorrow crosses his eyes. "If that's the path you choose." She stares at him, pangs of guilt twisting in her gut. "Why does it hurt you so much to say that?" He doesn't answer immediately, gaze fixed on the ground. "Because it feels like carving out a piece of my soul," he says at last, voice raw. "But I won't chain you. If you want it gone, I'll do it." Her throat thickens. She tears her eyes away, hugging her knees. A memory rises, the searing spark on her wrist, the odd sense of completion that both scared and thrilled her. She sets her jaw. This is exactly why she can't let emotion cloud her mind. She's seen too many alphas betray, too many illusions of love turn to cages. She exhales, pressing her forehead to her knees. "We'll decide later. For now, I just want to survive." He nods, rummaging in his pack. "I have water. Take some." He offers a small canteen. She swallows her pride, sipping gratefully. The forest envelopes them in near silence. Crickets chirp somewhere in the distance. The hush draws them closer than any fortress corridor ever did. They press on until dawn breaks, painting the sky with fragile pink. Exhaustion weighs on them, but they manage to find a small cave near a rocky slope. Kaelin helps Elara gather kindling for a tiny fire. He's cautious about smoke. She lowers herself onto the dirt floor, trembling from fatigue. He sits across from her, fiddling with flint and steel until sparks catch. A fragile flame dances, illuminating the lines of tension in his face. She crosses her arms, half hugging herself. "We're outlaws now," she muses bitterly. It feels surreal. Kaelin meets her gaze. "You said you wanted freedom. This is the start of that, or the first step into chaos." He shrugs one shoulder. "Either way, it's ours." Her chest pangs at how calmly he says ours. She pretends not to notice, leaning her head against the cave wall. Sleep tugs at her eyelids, but she fights it, uncertain she can let her guard down. He seems to read her tension. "I'll watch first. You rest." She stiffens, about to argue, but exhaustion swallows her retort. She nods, letting her heavy lids droop. The last thing she sees is Kaelin's silhouette, unwavering in the firelight like a sentinel. She falls into a troubled sleep. When she wakes hours later, the cave is dim, the sun high outside. Kaelin stands near the entrance, scanning the horizon. She pushes to her feet, wincing at stiff muscles. He glances back. "You slept," he says softly, relief edging his tone. She rubs the back of her neck. "I needed it." Then she notices his posture, coiled, wary. "Is someone following?" He exhales. "I heard distant howls. Could be wolves, could be a search party. We shouldn't linger." He slings his pack over his shoulder. "Ready." She forces her legs to obey, mind spinning with lingering grogginess. They trek onward through dense pines and rocky trails, forging deeper into unknown territory. Twice, they hear faint shouts in the distance, possibly a hunting party from the fortress. Her pulse leaps with panic. But Kaelin guides her along hidden paths, avoiding open ground. He moves like a shadow, so quiet she marvels at it. She tries her best to mimic his stealth. Days blur together in a haze of fatigue and tension, climbing higher into the mountain passes. She notices how he saves the best of their limited supplies for her, how he insists on standing watch through most nights. She tries not to appreciate it, tries to remain aloof, but part of her softens each time he quietly hands her a chunk of dried meat or a refill of water without complaining. She glimpses the raw determination behind his eyes, a desire to keep her safe that's wholly different from the controlling or violent impulses she's known from other alphas. They press on, half lost in the swirling mists that choke the higher altitudes. The nights grow colder, the wind sharper. She finds herself instinctively edging closer to him when the cold seeps into her bones. He never comments, just shares his cloak in silence. She hates the stirring warmth in her chest each time. She tries to tell herself it's just practicality. But the mate mark on her wrist flares sometimes, especially when he touches her. Once, while climbing a steep ravine, he grabbed her hand to steady her, and a pulse of heat shot through her so strong she nearly missed a footing. On the fourth night, they camp in a narrow defile between towering rocks. She's bone-tired, hungry, and her resolve to remain distant is crumbling. He lights a small fire using the last of their tinder. She sits across from him, knees drawn up, staring at the flickering flames. He breaks the silence first. "We're close to the pass," he murmurs. "Beyond it lies wilder territory, less patrolled. If we keep going, we might outrun the search parties." She nods, rubbing her sore shoulders. "Good." She glances at him, noticing how exhaustion shadows his face. "Then what? Do we just roam?" He swallows. "We can seek out that hermit I mentioned, the one who might break our bond, if that's your choice. Or we can keep traveling to my pack's distant lands. They might accept you if they see we're—" He hesitates, eyes drifting to her wrist. "If we're truly a pair." Her breath catches. "Truly a pair," she echoes softly, bitterness creeping in. "I never wanted a pair. I just wanted to be free." His jaw tightens. Maybe being bonded doesn't mean losing freedom. It could mean forging a new kind of strength. He meets her gaze. "With the right partner." She scoffs softly, but her chest constricts. "You're so sure you're the right partner?" His voice dips. "I'm sure no one else has made me feel like this. And I'm sure you deserve more than forced subjugation. That's all I know." He holds her stare, an undercurrent of raw vulnerability flickering behind his eyes. She swallows. The tension thrums between them, thick as night. She pictures all the times he saved her from council threats, how he never tried to exploit her. She pictures the alternative, a lonely flight through these mountains, forever hounded by the old laws, never truly safe. Her stomach twists with indecision. "Kaelin, I don't know. He stands abruptly, frustration radiating off him. "I won't push," he mutters, turning away. "I need air." He strides into the darkness beyond the fire's glow. She listens to the crunch of his boots fade, her heart clenched tight with guilt. She wonders if she's hurting him by refusing to accept what might be fate. Then she curses herself for caring about an alpha's feelings. Time drifts. The fire crackles softly. She tries to sleep, but can't. A wave of foreboding seeps into her bones. Something's wrong. She sits up, scanning the darkness. Kalen's been gone too long. Her pulse skitters. She hurries to the camp edge, calling his name softly. No answer. Fear claws her. She sets off along the rocky path, hand on her dagger, following faint footprints. The wind picks up, howling through the gorge. Suddenly, a snarl echoes. She breaks into a run. She rounds a sharp outcropping and stumbles upon a horrifying sight. Kalen pinned under a hulking shape, a monstrous wolf with matted fur, bigger than any normal beast. A rogue alpha in full wolf form, jaws snapping near Kalen's throat. Kalen struggles, muscles straining, but his blade lies out of reach. Blood drips from his forearm, painting the stones red. "Kalen!" Elara's scream pierces the night. The monstrous wolf turns its glowing eyes on her, snarling in savage delight. Fear paralyzes her for a split second. Then fury ignites. She lunges, brandishing her dagger. The rogue lashes out at her with a snapping maw, forcing her to dodge. But she's not letting it end like this. Her heart thunders. She baits the wolf, slashing at its flank. It roars, shifting focus from Kalen to her, turning those massive jaws in her direction. Kalen seizes the opening, rolling free with a choked gasp. She tries to keep the rogue wolf's attention, but it moves with terrifying speed. Its claws rake across her leg, slicing fabric and flesh. Pain flares. She stumbles, crying out. Kalen leaps back in, hooking an arm around the wolf's neck, trying to wrestle it off her. They grapple, teeth and growls. The wolf thrashes violently, sending Kalen crashing into the rock face with bone-jarring force. A sick crack echoes. Her heart stops. He slides down, dazed. The rogue wolf whips its head around, eyes fixating on Elara once more. She's cornered, wounded, dagger trembling in her grasp. This is it, she thinks, panic drowning her. She can't beat a monstrous alpha wolf alone. She pictures the final moment, her throat torn out on these cold stones. That can't happen. She refuses to die caged or slaughtered. The mark on her wrist flares with fierce heat, as if calling to something deep within. A primal part of her roars for survival. She tightens her grip on the dagger, ignoring the blood trickling down her leg. The rogue lunges, jaws snapping for her face. She drops to a knee at the last instant, driving the blade upward with every scrap of strength. It sinks deep into the wolf's side. A hideous yell tears from its throat. It staggers back, thrashing. Elara rips the blade free, gasping, adrenaline blazing. The wolf, wounded, tries one last savage slash, but she sidesteps, plunging the dagger again. The creature collapses in a shuddering heap, blood staining the rocks. Her chest heaves. She stands there, trembling, blade slick with gore. The wolf whimpers once, then goes still. Bile rises in her throat, but she forces it down. She's alive. She whirls to Kalen, who lies slumped, eyes half-lidded, blood seeping from a nasty head wound. Fear spears her heart. She drops beside him, pressing trembling fingers to his cheek. "Kaylin," she chokes out. "Hey, wake up!" He groans, eyes fluttering open. Relief floods her. He tries to sit, hissing at the pain in his ribs. She quickly checks him. No mortal wounds, but bruises and scrapes, definitely a possible fracture. He meets her gaze, confusion swirling. "You killed it?" She nods, voice shaky. "Barely." She tears a strip from her cloak, pressing it to his bleeding arm. "Let me help." He grits his teeth, letting her tie a makeshift bandage. Her hands shake from leftover terror. She can't stop thinking how close she came to losing him. The realization slams into her with unexpected force, tears burning her eyes. She fights them back. She can't be that weak. He notices her trembling, lifts his good hand to cup her cheek. "It's fine," he murmurs. "I'm alive. Thanks to you." She exhales a shaky laugh. "Don't get sappy," she tries to joke, but her throat feels too tight. His presence, warm despite the bruises, grounds her. The mate mark throbs softly. She closes her eyes, pressing her forehead to his. "Don't you dare scare me like that again." He half chuckles, wincing. "Wasn't my plan, trust me." Then he eyes her leg wound. "You're bleeding too." She glances down at the torn fabric and shallow claw marks. "It's not deep." He hesitates, then gingerly draws her closer, letting her lean on him. They're a mess of blood and exhaustion, crouched amid cold rocks with a dead rogue behind them. But in that grim tableau, she feels an undeniable closeness. She doesn't resist when he pulls her head to his chest. For a moment, she listens to his heartbeat, soaking in the fact that he's alive and that she saved him. They limp back to their camp, battered. Dawn's light seeps across the sky in trembling pink hues. She helps him rest, sets a small fire again. The tension of near death lingers in the air. She bandages her leg, ignoring the sharp sting. After some effort, they settle against the rocky wall, side by side. She's too drained to maintain her usual barriers. He's too hurt to stand on pride. She finds herself whispering, "You nearly died." His voice is hoarse. "So did you." She glances at his bruised arm, the caked blood. She can't believe how easily they could have lost each other, like flickers of candlelight in a storm. The thought leaves her hollow. "Why does it bother me so much?" she mutters, half to herself. "I've always said I don't need anyone." He gives a soft, broken laugh. "Maybe you do." He turns his head, meeting her gaze with a weary tenderness that knots her stomach. "And maybe I need you too." Her heart squeezes. She can't form a snappy retort. She just exhales, leaning back. They drift into a fragile sleep, bodies pressed for warmth, no space left for denial. Because in that near-death haze, the mate mark's warmth pulses, an undeniable reminder that they share something deeper than fear. The next day, they push forward despite their injuries, forging through the mountain pass. The pain slows them, but they keep going. As the days blur, Elara finds herself leaning on Kaylin more, physically and emotionally. She hates it, but she can't deny how her wolf side calms when he's near. She sees how fiercely he protects her without suffocating her independence. It's unlike any alpha dynamic she's known. The bond between them intensifies, each brush of their fingers sending jolts of recognition. At night, huddled around meager fires, she catches herself watching him doze, the lines of tension on his face smoothing. She wonders if she dares let herself care. Because caring means risking heartbreak. Yet her chest aches with a new sense of longing. On the 5th evening, they reach a secluded clearing by a waterfall. The sunset bleeds across the sky in fiery oranges and reds, hinting that the blood moon is almost here. They stand at the water's edge, the sound of roaring falls washing over them. Kaelin kneels, filling their canteens. She stands behind him, arms crossed, lost in thought. He glances back. "We're close to the hermit's domain," he says softly. "If you still want to break the bond, we can do it tomorrow." Her chest tightens. She stares at the swirling water. What if I don't want to break it? The words slip out, trembling with uncertainty. He stills, carefully setting the canteen aside. Then he rises, turning to face her. His expression brims with cautious hope. "Elara." She forces her gaze to meet his. "I'm still terrified," she admits. "But being with you running, fighting side by side, it feels right in ways I never expected. I don't want to be forced to accept the council's laws. But maybe I don't have to reject you to be free." She's shaking. She can't believe she's speaking these words out loud. Kaelin's eyes shine in the dying light. He steps closer, not touching her yet. "You have no idea how long I've hoped you'd say that. But I won't claim you unless you choose it fully." He lifts a hand, hovering near her cheek, asking for permission with his gaze. She nods, heart pounding. His warm palm cups her face, thumb stroking softly. She leans into the touch, letting out a shaky breath. The mate mark on her wrist tingles, a gentle hum instead of a violent burn. She lifts her hand, resting it on his chest, feeling his heartbeat thrumming in time with hers. For a moment, the entire world narrows to just them. Then, a rustle in the undergrowth. They both snap alert, stepping apart. She whirls, dagger half drawn. But no monstrous wolf leaps out. Instead, a panting scout stumbles into view, someone from the fortress, judging by his garb. Elara tenses, ready for a fight, but the scout collapses to his knees. "Thank the goddess I found you," he gasps. "The council, they discovered your flight. They've declared you both outlaws and demanded the packs bring you in. Bounties, everything. And they sent a hunting party. They're close behind." Elara's stomach lurches. So it's official, they're wanted criminals with a kill-on-sight order. She meets Kaelin's grim gaze. This is the worst-case scenario. She steels herself. "We can't outrun them all." The scout coughs, pressing a hand to his side. "There's more. The rogue attacks, they've escalated. Alphas are uniting under the council's banner, blaming you two for the chaos. They say your defiance angered the gods, that the blood moon's turning redder than ever." He shudders. "They're blaming you for every calamity." Elara's heart pummels her ribs. So now the entire region hunts them, blaming them for roving wolves, for the blood moon's unstoppable approach. She clenches her fists. "Then we stand no chance anywhere." Her eyes flick to Kaelin, who sets his jaw in quiet determination. He steps forward, addressing the scout. "Thank you for risking yourself to warn us. But we can't go back. Let them call us outlaws. We have to keep moving." The scout grimaces. "They plan to corner you near the pass. If you cross it by tomorrow night, you might slip away. But if not, they'll close in." Elara's throat tightens. The blood moon is tomorrow night. They're nearly out of time. Her gaze slides to Kaelin, chest constricting. He lifts a hand, brushing her hair back. "We'll find a way," he murmurs, voice steady despite the tension bristling around them. She swallows hard. The scout nods, giving them a sorrowful look before limping off, presumably to avoid being seen with them. Now they're truly alone. She sees the fear mirrored in Kalen's eyes. For once, it's not fear of each other, but of the entire world outside that wants them destroyed. He grips her shoulder gently. "Elara," he whispers. "Whatever happens, you're not alone." His voice cracks at the last syllable, revealing how much he's risking. She lifts trembling fingers to his cheek, swallowing a sob. "I know." They stare at each other, hearts pounding. They spend the night forging a new plan, a last, desperate push to cross the pass by tomorrow, slip into the wild lands beyond. But as the final day dawns, dread saturates the air. The blood moon's presence weighs like a physical thing. Even the sky seems tinted with red. They sense the approaching storm in the wind's eerie hiss. Their final trek is a nightmare. Trails vanish in swirling fog, the temperature plummets. Twice they spot shapes moving among the crags, likely bounty hunters. Kalen steers them around hidden ravines. Elara's leg throbs from her old wound, each step agony. But she forces herself onward, fueled by raw adrenaline. Late afternoon, they stumble into a narrow gorge, rock walls looming on either side. The light dims, though it's not yet sunset. A hush falls. She glances at Kalen. He looks worried, scanning the cliffs overhead. "Feels like a trap," he mutters, "but the pass is the only path." They push forward. Sure enough, a shout echoes from above. Elara looks up, heart dropping. A cluster of armed wolves on the ridges, bows and spears in hand. Council enforcers, maybe, or allied packs. They have them pinned. Another group emerges at the far end of the gorge, blocking escape. She curses under her breath. They can't fight that many. One figure steps forward, the stooped elder himself, staff in hand. "Elara, Kalen," he calls, voice carrying. "You gave us no choice. Surrender. Accept the bond under our terms, or face your punishment." Kalen bares his teeth in a silent snarl. She grips his arm, trembling. If they run, the archers pick them off. If they surrender, they're forced into captivity. She lifts her chin, eyes scanning the canyon for a miracle. Then the clouds above part, revealing the sun tinted a deep, eerie red. The blood moon rises soon, overshadowing day. The entire gorge glows with ominous light. She senses something primal in her chest stirring. The watchers shift uneasily. The elder raises his staff. "Last chance, Elara. Bond with Kalen in the old ritual, under the council's blessing, or die." Her mind spins, heart pounding. She glances at Kalen. He meets her gaze with a mixture of heartbreak and fierce devotion. "Your call," he murmurs. "I'll stand by whatever you decide." She exhales. The council is offering her a forced union. But she looks at Kalen and sees a different path, a true choice. She can claim him on her own terms, forging a bond that defies their rules. Her voice shakes as she yells up at the elder, "No. I won't submit to your twisted laws. If I bond with Kalen, it's by my will, not yours." An uproar surges among the watchers. The elder shouts something about them being heretics. Spears level, bows draw taut. Kalen shifts closer to Elara, every muscle coiled. She realizes they might die here. A hush falls as thunder rumbles from the blood moon overhead. She gazes into Kalen's eyes, hard on the brink. "I choose you," she whispers, voice trembling with both terror and hope. "Not because they demand it, but because I want to. Because I can't imagine facing this alone anymore." Tears burn her eyes. She reaches for him, ignoring the ring of enemies. His eyes widen in raw relief, shimmering with emotion. He lifts the hand to her cheek. "I'm yours," he murmurs, voice shaking. "Now and always." She inhales, letting the mate mark blaze to life in her chest. She steps close, heart hammering, and presses her mouth to his in a desperate, blazing kiss. A shock wave of warmth erupts between them, the bond flaring so bright it feels like fire under her skin. Gasps erupt from the watchers. Elara senses raw power swirling, as though the blood moon itself channels through them. Kaelin groans into her lips, arms tightening around her. She yields, letting the connection flood her senses. It's terrifying, exhilarating. She feels his soul burn against hers, a merging of hearts that defies every chain the council tried to place on her. She breaks free with a gasp, eyes shining, and glimpses a shimmering glow around them, some phenomenon of the bond in full bloom. A furious shout breaks the spell. The watchers unleash arrows and spears. Time seems to slow. Kaelin roars, pulling her behind a boulder. Shafts thud into the ground. The stooped elder screams for them to be captured. But in that moment, Elara feels unstoppable. The bond surges, giving her a clarity she's never known. "We fight," she whispers, adrenaline pounding. Kaelin nods. They move as one, dashing between rocks. Arrows hiss overhead. She brandishes her dagger. He wields a short sword. A few enforcers leap down to engage them, but they coordinate with uncanny ease, reading each other's moves. She feints high, Kaelin sweeps low. 2 enforcers fall. The rest hesitate, unnerved by the blazing aura enveloping the pair. One huntsman readies a deadly arrow, aimed at Kaelin's back. Elara spots him, her wolf instincts shrieking. She hurls her dagger in a perfect arc, lodging it in the huntsman's arm. He drops the bow with a pained yelp. She breathes, heart racing. They press onward, forging a path out of the gorge. The stooped elder's voice roars from above, calling them abominations. But the crossfire from allied packs devolves into chaos. Some archers refuse to fire on them, uncertain. Others chase them in disarray. Elara and Kaelin break through the line, bursts of flame dancing across the blood moon's horizon. They sprint for the pass, footsteps echoing over the thunder of distant storms. At last, they clear the gorge, stumbling onto a plateau that overlooks the next valley. The watchers' shouts fade behind them. Elara collapses to her knees, gasping, tears streaming down her cheeks. Kaelin sinks beside her, panting heavily. The blood moon stands overhead, painting the sky in a deep crimson glow, as if witnessing their final stand. She turns to him, breath ragged, face streaked with sweat and dust. We did it," she whispers, almost disbelieving. He wraps an arm around her, pressing his forehead to hers. The mate mark pulses warmly, no longer a curse, but a promise of something new. She feels raw, open, yet stronger than she's ever been. He cups her jaw, voice thick. "Elara, you said you'd choose me. I'll do anything to honor that." Her heart cracks wide with love and relief. "I choose you," she repeats, tears dripping. "But not because the council demanded it. Because I want to build something better, something that tears down their chains." She swallows. "You said you'd do anything. Then help me do that. Help me show them we can be Alpha and Omega without subjugation." He smiles, eyes shining with unshed tears. "I will. By the goddess, I will." Their lips meet again, a slower, gentler kiss that cements their vow. The night wraps around them, the blood moon's red glow a silent witness to their union. They journey on, crossing into territory beyond the Council's immediate reach. Tales of their rebellion spread like wildfire. Some call them traitors, others call them heroes. Meanwhile, the rogue attacks recede as the roving packs sense the shift in power, two mated wolves forging a different future. Elara and Kaelin carve out a new existence, gathering those who yearn for freedom from ancient laws. On the evening the blood moon reaches its peak, they stand at the heart of a small clearing, flanked by allies who trust them, wolves who left the Council's oppressive system. A hush falls as the moon bathes them in crimson. Elara steps forward, heart pounding. Kaelin waits, eyes steady, letting her lead. This is their final binding, a ritual they choose for themselves, not forced by any council. She lifts a ceremonial blade, slicing a shallow cut across her palm. He does the same, pressing their palms together, blood mingling under the moon's raw light. The mate mark ignites in a fierce glow, silver gold swirling around their wrists. She speaks softly, voice trembling with emotion. I, Elara, was never the girl who needed saving. I was the girl meant to burn the old world. And now, with you, I'm ready to build something new. By choice, not by law. Kaelin's breath shudders. I, Kaelin, pledge to stand at your side. To be your alpha, your partner, your mate, by your will, not your submission. A flush of power crackles, shimmering like stardust around them. She lifts her free hand, cupping the back of his neck, pulling him down for a searing kiss that tastes of triumph and tears. The onlookers let out a soft, awed murmur. Under the blood moon's final blaze, the bond cements fully, forging a union that's all heat and trust, passion and defiance. She feels her wolf side surge in exultation, no longer trapped by fear or scorn. Beside her, Kaelin groans softly, arms tightening around her waist, returning the kiss with equal fervor. The moon glows brighter, as if acknowledging their vow. When they part, the clearing rings with quiet reverence. She meets his eyes, breathless. He looks at her like she's the entire horizon. We'll face them together, he says, voice low. Every last barrier. She nods, tears slipping free. Yes, and we'll show them a better way. No more forced bonds, no more illusions. She was the Omega who refused to bow. He was the Alpha who broke every law to protect her. Now they stand as equals, forging a bond by choice, not by force. The old rules can't contain them. In the hush that follows, she presses her forehead to Kaelin's, feeling the steady thud of his heart, the new life surging through her veins. A wave of unshakable certainty settles in. This is what she was born for, not to be caged, but to blaze a new path with her fated mate. She glances around at the wolves gathered, some with eyes shining in hope. They see it too. She twines her fingers with Kaelin's, a small smile curving her lips. Shall we burn the old world down? She teases softly. He chuckles, eyes bright with that fearless spark. Gladly. As long as we build it back, side by side. She leans in, capturing his lips once more in a tender kiss that speaks volumes. Her heart soars, free and bound all at once, exactly as it should be. The blood moon overhead fades from crimson to pale silver, as if blessing the union that defies every chain. And when dawn comes, they're still there in the clearing, arms around each other, unbreakable, unstoppable, rewriting fate with every breath. They step forward into the new day, leaving behind a legacy of defiance and passion. For Elara, the girl who refused 7 alphas has finally chosen the 8th on her own terms, forging a bond that outlasts fear. And Kaylin, the alpha unafraid to break rules, stands with her, every step a promise of freedom. Their story unfolds under the rising sun, no longer a tragedy, but a fierce testament that love isn't a cage, it's a fire they'll stoke together.